Hello BookTube. Today on my 2023 library tour, I will be continuing with the classics, canonical, modern, and contemporary fiction, poetry, and drama. This starts the contemporary fiction, although I will be beginning with the complete works of William Shakespeare. So this is the Bevington edited edition from Edison Wesley Longman. I picked this up for a class on Shakespeare that I took in 2003 or 2004 sometime. We read a number of the plays, and then we read all of the sonnets and a good chunk of the plays, and I've periodically gone back to some of the plays since then, although I've never done a massive cover-to-cover read of the complete works of Shakespeare. To be honest, Shakespeare isn't one of my favorites. I've never really got him, I don't think. Next is Somebody Loves You by Mona Archie. I picked this up in part because this was longlisted for the Republic of Consciousness Prize last year. And last year, I felt a strong desire to get involved in some literary prizes. The Republic of Consciousness, the Bookers, the Women's Prize, particularly the Kundal, which I did actively engage with, but I'll get to that when I get to history. And I wanted to get involved with a book prize because I see so many booktubers engage in book prizes and have a ball. Whether it's to just reading the long lists, talking about them, they're amazing videos. And I wanted to experience that for myself, although probably not the Republic of Consciousness Prize. I did not get on with this at all, despite two attempts. Next up is The Blind Assassin by Margaret Atwood. This one won the Booker Prize in 2000 or 2001. It was one of the few works by Atwood that I've had in my collection. I used to have this, The Rubber Bride, and Wilderness Tips. And I've never, except for The Rubber Bride, I've never quite got on with Atwood's work. And I wanted to add this back to my collection because it is part of a reading project I'm working on this year. My 10 contemporary classics that I must be able to redeem. So this will be read at some point. Not sure when. Maybe in August or later. Next is Dark Mints by Nicola Barker. I've had this for a few years now, and I'll be getting to it hopefully soon. It is part of my 12 TBR. A book that I've had for ages and is very beat up is The Saltweed Factor by John Barth. I've had this for about 10 or more years now, and I finally made a concerted effort to read it last year, and it did not go well at all. I didn't particularly care for it, so I might give it a bail redemption shot at some point, or I might go ahead and send it on its way, although it is in pretty rough shape, so I don't know quite what to do with it in that situation. Next is Shadow Play by Charles Baxter. I picked this up for my America 20 project, an ill-fated reading project I came up with in 2020 to better love literary fiction. It did not go well. So I finally got around to it last year and didn't get on with it at all. So, yeah. At least I think it was last year. It might have been in 2021. Next is Lie With Me by Philippe Besson, translated by Molly Ringwald. This is a work of gay literature set in France in the early 70s, and I quite liked it, although I liked the first half more than I did the second half. Returning to my American Twinning project, this is Alamo House by Sarah Bird, which I picked up in part because I wanted to read something set in Texas, namely Austin, which this is, although it's not very good. I've had two or three reading attempts, and ended up bailing on it each time. Here is a game we could play by Ginny Bittner. I picked this up from the University of Chicago Press, and I bailed on it. Next is a book I've had for a very long time, since I was in high school. That is The Soft Machine by William S. Burroughs, which I read in high school, I think. Although it might have taken me a bit longer, it might have taken me into college before I finally read it. But I haven't come back to it. So anyway, it's a weird science fiction novel in a way. This is The Trouble with Goats and Sheep by Joanna Cannon. I think it made the rounds of BookTube when I first became aware of BookTube, and I picked it up from Book Depository, but I haven't gotten around to it yet. Now, here's a book I picked up for my birthday TBR. Early last year, Criminali made a birth year book tag. And one of the parts of that tag was to commit to reading books published in your birth year. And so I picked up a few. They didn't go quite as well as I would have liked. And this was one of them. Cathedral by Raymond Carver. It's a collection of short stories that I didn't particularly care for. Although I might give it a Veil Redemption shot at some point. Speaking of a book that I bailed on, this is The Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay by Michael Chabon. This won the the Pulitzer Prize in 2000, 2001. I think it's 2001. That I've had before, and I read most of it, but there's a scene that I've talked about several times that threw me out of the book. But when Steve Donahue responded to Katie Books' 10 Contemporary Classics You Must Read, and this was on Steve's list, it kind of lit a fire of, well, maybe I could do the 10 Contemporary Classics I Must Bail Redeem, because 3 of Steve's lists I think I'd bailed on. So that inspired me to pick up 10 books who could be contemporary classics that I maybe should bail redeem. Although, so far, given that this was the first one up, it also failed. I bailed on it again. So anyway, I might keep it and give it another shot at some point, but I don't know when that will be. Next is Texaco by Patrick Chamoiseau. I've long wanted to read this novel because I read an article on it, and it enticed me to read it, but I haven't gotten to it yet. It hasn't been that long since I picked it up. Next is another book I picked up for the birth year book tag. This is The Life and Times of Michael Kay by J.M. Coetzee. it was up for the Booker. Oh no, it won the Booker, and also Coates won the Nobel Prize. I did not get on with it at all, which is our current theme on these shelves. So next up is my Dennis Cooper collection. This is Closer. You try to cover up some naughty bits. This is one of the George Miles novels. It's I read it in 2007-ish. I don't quite remember where I picked it up from. Could have been Powell's. It could have been a used bookstore in San Francisco, or it could have been like a Barnes& Noble when they sold used books. But I remember reading it, and I don't think I quite liked it all that much. But I've had it for a while. A book I know for sure I picked up from Powell's is Frisk, also by Dennis Cooper. This is a weird one that took me forever to finally get to, and I read it for Garbagas last year, and it did not go well at all. It's not very good. Another work I remember not having quite much luck at, and I don't think there's anything I need to cover up here, is Wrong, a collection of short stories. This is the first book by Dennis Cooper I ever owned, and I read it, I think I did it in high school, although it might have taken me into college before I finally got around to it. It might have been a few bells. But anyway. And then to end Dennis Cooper, I have The Sluts, which is about a male prostitute who is reviewed online, and it's a whole thing. I remember not particularly liking it. I read it shortly after I picked it up when I was in San Francisco, and I think I didn't quite get on with it. I think I probably kept it because of the cover. Okay. Moving on to another gay writer. This is A Home at the End of the World by Michael Cunningham. This is a wonderful novel. I really enjoyed reading it. It is very heartrending at times, but I quite liked it. I used to have like a 2-in-1 edition with Flesh and Blood, but I got rid of it and eventually picked that one back up. And in a book that I really wish I did not have this cover, I hate this cover, is The Hours by Michael Cunningham. I had this from like I think the initial paperback release, which is a much better cover than this. But yeah, this one's really good too, cover notwithstanding. So yeah, I've been wanting to read Cunningham again for a while. Next is a book that I've had several goes at, and I finally Bill redeemed this past December for Bill Redemption December, and that is Wonderland by Stacey D'Erasmo. Even though I did Bill redeem it, I didn't particularly like it all that much. So, yeah. And next is Burnt Sugar by Avni Doshi. This was shortlisted for the Booker Prize in 2020, and I picked it up on the enthusiastic recommendation of Katie Books, who was a huge booster for this novel. Unfortunately, I've bailed on it about 2 or 3 times, so yeah, did not quite work for me. Next is A Visit from the Goon Squad by Jennifer Egan, which I picked up, I think last year, or maybe, yeah, I think it was last year, but haven't gotten around to it yet. Next is another book that was longlisted for the Republic of Consciousness Prize as well as the International Booker, and that is After the Sun by Jonas Eike. This is a collection of short stories that were terrible. Just, they were terrible. Okay, now I don't have a bookmark in there. I was thinking of giving a Bell Redemption shot, but I changed my mind. So this particular shelf ends with Bret Easton Ellis. This is Less Than Zero, which is a novel about a young man, Clay, who's coming back to LA after his semester at college. I have long wanted to read this. I think I actually did read it, but I don't remember much of it. So yeah, I've got this one, and I also have his second novel, Less Than Zero, even though, again, I wish I had a different cover for it, or a different edition. But this one is set at the school that the main character of Less Than Zero went to. I had to go at it when I had it in a different edition, and I haven't gone back to it yet, but I've been meaning to. I might at some point, I don't know. Anyway, but then again, I don't really get on with Ellis's work, so I don't quite know why it's still in my collection, except for the fact that Bret Easton Ellis, well, I guess you could describe my relationship, let me backtrack. If I were to personify literary fiction, if not the entirety of classics, canonical, modern, and contemporary fiction, poetry, drama, but certainly literary fiction, I would characterize as a character out of a Bret Easton Ellis novel. It's like, yeah. So anyway, maybe that's why I still have them. I don't know. But I'll finish up with two critical anthologies. This is The Critical Tradition, edited by David H. Richter. I had this for my literary theory class at St. Edward's when I was in Austin, and I quite like this one. I've often thought about doing a cover-to-cover read over several months, but then I always think better of it. And I also have the Norton Anthology of Theory and Criticism, edited by a whole slew of people, which I had for my grad school in literary theory class, which I was not there for all that long. And less said about that, the better. So anyway, BookTube, that concludes this part of the tour. I'll be back tomorrow with the second and, well, yeah, it would be the second and third shelves of this bookcase down here. Although now it will be the fourth and fifth shelves. Anyway, so I'll be back tomorrow, probably in the same location. I'll just reach down. That should work. So yeah, that'll work. Anyway, BookTube, that's all I got for now. I'll see you maybe later this evening with another tag video. And if not, then I'll see you definitely tomorrow for a continuation of the library tour. So until then, BookTube, thank you. Have a great afternoon and stay safe.